Rain slicked the bus window as Chief Elias Thorne rode the last route of the night, a quiet ritual after long, demanding days. His gaze, usually sharp, softened as he watched the city lights blur. Then, a subtle movement from the young transit worker, Lena Petrova, caught his eye. As she shifted, a faded, star-shaped tattoo peeked from beneath her uniform sleeve, a chilling echo that ripped a 40-year-old wound wide open. The tattoo's image burned behind Thorne's eyes as he unlocked his study door, the quiet apartment now filled with ghosts. He moved past framed commendations, ignoring the weight of his achievements, his hand unerringly reaching for a specific worn file. Lily Jensen, missing, age 5, June 1984. The faded label read, "His first big case, his greatest failure." Inside, a brittle report described a unique, star-shaped birthmark on Lily's left wrist, precisely where the young transit worker's tattoo had been. Could it be? After all these years, a flicker of desperate, terrifying hope ignited within him. Early morning light filtered into Thorne's office, but his focus remained on the Lily Jensen file, its yellowed pages a stark contrast to the glowing screens of his current duties. He picked up his phone, the decision made. "Sharma," he said, his voice low and steady, "I need you to look into someone for me, discreetly, off the books." He gave her Lena Petrova's name, requesting a deep dive into her personal history, not her criminal record. Anya, his sharpest junior, paused, a hint of confusion in her usually unflappable tone, but Thorne's quiet intensity left no room for questions. The bus depot hummed with a symphony of engines and early morning chatter, a familiar comfort for Lena Petrova. She moved with practiced efficiency, her mind already on her route. As she adjusted the cuff of her uniform, the faded starburst tattoo on her wrist briefly emerged, a small, private comfort. She'd always had it, a birthmark she'd chosen to make permanent, a constant in a life that often felt fluid and undefined. It was just a star, a symbol that had always felt like hers, a small anchor in her busy, hardworking world. A few days later, Chief Elias Thorne found Detective Anya Sharma at her desk, in a quiet corner of the precinct, the hum of the station a distant murmur. "Anything?" he asked, his voice low, betraying the anxiety he'd tried to suppress. Anya, sharp and efficient, turned her laptop screen towards him. "Lena Petrova, sir. Adopted at age 5, from a small rural foster home. Records are sparse, sealed mostly. No clear birth parents, no medical history from infancy." Thorne felt a jolt, a cold recognition that went straight to his gut. Adopted at 5. Lily Jensen had vanished at 5. The coincidence, if it was one, felt too profound to ignore. "Keep digging, Sharma," he commanded, a quiet fire in his eyes. "Everything you can find, no matter how small." The next day, Thorne, in plain clothes, found Lena Petrova on her break at the bustling bus terminal. The din of engines and passenger chatter was a stark contrast to his inner turmoil. "Miss Petrova?" he began, trying to sound casual, introducing himself vaguely as a concerned citizen. He subtly steered the conversation towards her. Her background, then, as gently as he could, to the faint starburst on her wrist. "That's an interesting tattoo. Any story behind it?" Lena, balancing a lukewarm coffee, eyed him warily. Her body language closed off, a subtle tightening of her shoulders. "It's just a childhood mark," she said curtly, her voice flat. "Had it tattooed over years ago. Nothing special." She shifted, clearly uncomfortable, then dismissed him with a polite but firm nod, turning back to her empty bus seat. Thorne watched her go, a familiar disappointment settling in his chest. She was a fortress, and his direct approach had barely chipped the paint. Back in his office, Thorne knew he couldn't proceed discreetly forever. He arranged a meeting, hoping to formally leverage department resources. Across the sterile conference table sat Frank Miller, a city official whose polished demeanor masked a glacial pragmatism. "Chief, with all due respect, reopening a 40-year-old cold case is a monumental waste of resources," Miller stated, his voice even, devoid of emotion. "We have current caseloads, budget constraints. It's an old file, Thorne. Likely unsolvable." He leaned forward, his gaze unnervingly direct. "And frankly, Chief, there's a perception you're becoming too personally invested in this. It's clouding your judgment." Thorne's jaw clenched. He yearned to scream, to explain the ghost that had haunted him for decades. But he knew Miller would only see weakness. He was on his own. Late that evening, Anya Sharma sat alone in her apartment, the glow of her desk lamp illuminating a scattered array of files. She had the sparse adoption records for Lena Petrova, alongside the old, yellowed Lily Jensen case file. Thorne's unusual request gnawed at her. It wasn't like him to chase phantoms. As she sifted through the Jensen file again, a barely legible handwritten note caught her eye. Distinctive mark on wrist, it read, small star shape. Her breath hitched. A shiver ran down her spine. This wasn't just a chief chasing a ghost. This was a man gripped by something profound. Anya knew, instinctively, that this case was far more than a professional obligation for Elias Thorne. It was personal. And she was now deeply, irrevocably, a part of it. The air in the precinct basement archives hung heavy with the scent of decaying paper and forgotten dreams. Dust motes danced in the anemic flicker of fluorescent lights as Chief Elias Thorne and Detective Anya Sharma, working long past official hours, systematically sifted through boxes marked with decades-old dates. Thorne's hands, usually steady, trembled slightly as he pulled a forgotten box from a high shelf. Inside, beneath a pile of routine reports, lay a yellowed folder. "Sharma, look at this," he murmured, his voice tight with a sudden, potent hope. It was a collection of raw witness statements and, crucially, a crude, childlike sketch. A starburst. Undeniably, a starburst, drawn precisely on a tiny wrist. A faded report, tucked behind it, mentioned a small, distinctive scar near the birthmark, a detail Thorne remembered from the original case. The pieces were no longer just fitting. They were snapping into place with chilling precision. Meanwhile, in her small, neat apartment, Lena Petrova found a quiet solace in her sketchbook. Her pencil moved with fluid grace, tracing abstract patterns across the page. Many of them incorporated stars, constellations, and intricate starbursts, a motif that felt inherently hers. She paused, absently touching the faded blue ink on her left wrist. It was a birthmark, she'd always told herself. A childhood mark she'd eventually made permanent with a tattoo. A quiet comfort in a life that often felt transient. She traced the faint white line of a small, barely noticeable scar near the star, a forgotten childhood injury. Lena had always felt a subtle, indefinable sense of longing, as if a piece of her story was just out of reach. But for now, the starburst was simply a beautiful, private symbol. Back in Thorne's office, late afternoon sunlight streamed through the blinds, illuminating the intensity in his eyes. He and Sharma were deep in discussion, the weight of their discovery palpable. "We have to approach her with the utmost care, Anya," Thorne stressed, his voice low and firm. "This isn't just an investigation anymore. It's a life, a fragile one. They needed a way to get a DNA sample, or at least a closer, unobstructed look at Lena's wrist, without alarming her, without revealing the earth-shattering truth just yet. The goal was not to ambush, but to offer a path to understanding. Empathy, Thorne knew, was paramount, especially given Lena's potentially traumatic and unknown past. One wrong move could shatter everything. A few days later, Thorne found Lena in the bus depot break room, nursing a lukewarm coffee. He approached her, not in uniform, but in a casual jacket, a practiced, earnest smile on his face. "Miss Petrova, Chief Thorne," he said, extending a hand. "I'm here not as an officer today, but as a citizen. I'm involved in a community initiative focused on public transport safety, and we're looking for input from dedicated transit workers like yourself." He offered her a small honorarium to attend a, quote, focus group. Lena's brow furrowed, wary of any deviation from her routine, but the mention of extra income and the vague, civic-minded appeal resonated. "A small meeting, really," Thorne assured her. She hesitated for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, Chief, I can make time." Under the guise of a focus group, a chief plays a dangerous game. Will Lena's DNA finally solve a 40-year mystery or expose Thorne's deception? The conference room felt too sterile, too quiet for a genuine, quote, community initiative. Lena Petrova sat across from Chief Elias Thorne and Detective Anya Sharma, the only other attendees. She clutched a water bottle, its plastic cool against her palm. Thorne, dressed in a muted blazer, spoke in a low, even tone about transit worker safety, but his eyes, sharp and unwavering, kept returning to her wrist. He was looking for something. Lena shifted, a prickle of unease settling in. When Sharma suggested a short break for coffee, Lena gratefully rose, leaving her half-empty water bottle on the table. As she stepped out, Sharma, with practiced nonchalance, picked up the bottle, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement before disappearing into a back room. Thorne, seizing the moment, steered the conversation back to minor workplace injuries. "Ever had a nasty scrape on the job, Miss Petrova?" he asked, his gaze fixed on the faded starburst tattoo, a pale scar visible just beside it. Lena pulled back her sleeve further, a flicker of discomfort in her eyes. "Just the usual bumps," she murmured, quickly pulling it down again. For 40 years, the chief carried a burden. Now, as his past collides with Lena's present, the true agony of the unsolved case is laid bare. Back in his office, late that night, the city lights flickered through the blinds, casting long, shifting shadows. Thorne sat at his desk, the Lily Jensen cold case file spread open. He traced the grainy black-and-white photograph of a smiling 5-year-old girl, her eyes bright with a forgotten joy. He remembered her parents' faces, etched with a grief so profound it had haunted him for decades. Asterisk, "Please, officer." Asterisk, her mother had pleaded. Asterisk, she has a star on her wrist, a little birthmark. Her father, a gentle carpenter, had spoken of a small scar near it, from when Lily had tumbled from a porch swing. Thorne, a raw rookie, had felt the weight of that failure crush him. The frantic searches, the public outcry, the eventual, agonizing silence. He had failed Lily. He had failed her parents. He had failed himself. Now, with Lena's image burned into his mind, the faded tattoo, the tiny scar, a desperate hope warred with the deep-seated fear of another, equally devastating failure. The wait for the DNA results was an exquisite torment. The DNA results are in. Lena is Lily. A 40-year mystery is solved, but the truth is a tidal wave that will change everything. The call came in the pre-dawn quiet of the forensics lab. Sharma's voice, usually calm and detached, held a tremor of disbelief as she reported to Thorne. "Chief, the results are back. Lena Petrova's DNA. It's a 99.9% match to the biological parents of Lily Jensen." Thorne gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles white. The sterile hum of the lab, the distant sirens, all faded into a dull roar. 40 years. 40 years of silence, of guilt, of a ghost haunting his career. And now, a name, a confirmation, a life found. A single tear, hot and unexpected, tracked a path down his weathered cheek. Relief, profound and dizzying, washed over him, immediately followed by an overwhelming sadness for the lost years, for the parents who had died without knowing. He could barely speak, only manage a choked whisper. "Lily, she's alive." He solved the case, but the hardest part is yet to come. How does Chief Thorne tell a woman her entire life has been a lie and that she is someone else? Thorne sat in stunned silence, the weight of the past and the imminent future pressing down on him. Sharma, recognizing the magnitude of the moment, placed a quiet, supportive hand on his shoulder. "Chief?" she murmured, her voice soft. He looked out the window, the first rays of dawn painting the city in hues of gray and rose. He had been driven by a desperate hope, resorting to deception to find the truth. But now the truth itself was a delicate, fragile thing. He couldn't approach Lena with subterfuge. He had to be transparent, compassionate, and utterly truthful. How do you tell someone their entire life, their very identity, has been a lie? How do you give them back a past they never knew they lost, knowing it would shatter the present they had built? The responsibility was immense, terrifying. He took a deep, shuddering breath. "We need to talk to her," he said, his voice firming with resolve. "No more games. She deserves the truth, all of it." The aroma of brewing tea and a faint scent of old books hung in Lena Petrova's small apartment, a testament to the quiet life she had meticulously built. Rain pattered softly against the window panes, a familiar soundtrack to her Saturday routine. She moved with practiced efficiency, tidying stray papers, humming along to a folk melody from her worn speakers. Her gaze drifted to a faded photograph on her bookshelf. A smiling, somewhat stern woman and a gentle-faced man, her adoptive parents. They were gone now, but their kindness and quiet struggles had shaped her. Lena often felt a peculiar ache, a sense of a piece missing from her personal puzzle, but she'd long since learned to fill that void with hard work and self-reliance. It was her normal, her strength, a quiet contentment forged in the absence of a known past. Her world was simple, predictable, and entirely unaware of the storm gathering on its horizon. In the sterile quiet of Chief Thorne's office, the weight of Lena's unknown past felt palpable. Detective Sharma sat opposite him, a stack of newly unsealed adoption records between them. The DNA match had been the leverage needed, prying open files that had remained closed for decades. Lily Jensen was found wandering near Crestwood, a small town 3 hours east, approximately 3 months after her disappearance. Sharma reported, her voice low, disoriented, unable to recall her name or family. She spent a year in a rural foster home before being adopted by a couple, the Petrovas. Good people, working class. They never knew she was a missing child, Chief. They believed she was an orphan, abandoned. Thorne listened, his gaze fixed on the fragile documents, a profound sadness settling over him. Lily, lost in a bureaucratic maze, then given a new life, completely unaware. His heart ached for the lost years, but a fierce resolve hardened his jaw. He had to prepare. The truth was a delicate, dangerous thing. Elias Thorne closed his eyes, leaning back in his chair. The sterile office faded, replaced by the vivid green of a sun-drenched park, 40 years ago. He was a rookie, overwhelmed, but he remembered the Jensens. Lily's father, a quiet carpenter with calloused hands, had clutched a small, wooden starburst. "It's her guiding star," he'd whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears, referring to the birthmark on his daughter's wrist. "She'll always find her way home." Thorne remembered the mother's raw, inconsolable grief, a wound that never healed. Both had passed years ago, their final breaths taken without knowing what had become of their little girl. The irony was a bitter taste in Thorne's mouth. The star had indeed guided her, but not home to them. He felt a retrospective grief, a heavy burden for the parents who'd died, carrying the weight of an unanswered prayer, never seeing their star return. Their legacy of love, however, had endured, waiting patiently to be discovered. The knock on Lena's door was firm, yet not aggressive. She opened it cautiously, her heart giving a nervous flutter. Standing in the hallway were Chief Thorne and Detective Sharma, both in uniform. Their presence immediately shifted the atmosphere, replacing the quiet hum of her apartment with a sudden, unsettling gravity. "Miss Petrova," Thorne began, his voice serious but tinged with compassion. "We've uncovered something significant regarding your past. Something that requires a private and sensitive discussion at the station." Lena's breath hitched. Fear, cold and sharp, gripped her. "Am I in trouble, Chief?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Has something bad happened?" Sharma offered a small, reassuring smile, but her eyes held a profound solemnity. Thorne met Lena's gaze, his own filled with earnestness. "No, Lena, you're not in trouble. But your life, it's about to change in ways you can't imagine." Lena sat in the quiet interview room, the sterile walls feeling impossibly cold. Thorne and Sharma sat across from her, a single file folder resting on the table between them. Her hands, clasped tightly in her lap, trembled slightly. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to retreat to the predictable comfort of her bus route, her humble apartment. "Please," she finally managed, her voice raw. "Just tell me, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong?" Thorne's gaze was steady, unwavering. "Lena, you are not in trouble. And you've done nothing wrong." He paused, the silence in the room stretching, heavy with unspoken truths. "But the information we have, it is profound. It's about who you are, where you came from, It will be life-altering. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the impending revelation. She braced herself, unknowingly standing at the precipice of a truth 40 years in the making. The air in the sterile interview room hung heavy, thick with unspoken truths. Chief Elias Thorne, his face etched with a gravitas that spoke of decades of untold burdens, gently slid a worn manila file across the polished table. Its label, stark and faded, read, Lily Jensen, missing, age 5, June 1984. Lena's eyes, wide with a mixture of apprehension and confusion, fixed on the file, then on Thorne's somber expression. He began to speak, his voice a low, steady current against the rising tide of her fear. He described a small, vibrant girl, her parents, desperate pleas, the frantic search, and a distinctive, star-shaped birthmark on her tiny wrist. Lena listened, numb, a knot tightening in her stomach. Then came the words that would irrevocably cleave her life in two. Lena, Thorne said, his gaze meeting hers, profound empathy softening the sharp edges of his resolve. The DNA match is irrefutable. Your name is Lily Jensen. You were taken from your family 40 years ago. The words hung in the air, a physical blow that stole Lena's breath. Her vision tunneled, the room blurring into an indistinct haze, her ears ringing with the echo of a name that was hers, yet utterly foreign. A daze descended upon Lena, thick and suffocating. Her hand, as if guided by an unseen force, rose instinctively to her left wrist, tracing the familiar lines of her starburst tattoo. Thorne, observing her, understood. The tattoo, he said softly, his voice cutting through the fog of her shock. It's likely right over the birthmark. Lily had one, a starburst, on her left wrist. He carefully opened the file, revealing a crude, childlike sketch of a star and a faded report. And here, he continued, pointing to a barely legible line, a small, distinctive scar near the birthmark from a childhood injury. Lena's fingers, trembling violently, brushed against the raised ink of her tattoo, then found it, a faint, almost invisible white line, a tiny seam in her skin she'd always dismissed as a forgotten scrape. The physical evidence, undeniable and chilling, grounded the impossible truth. Disbelief curdled into a dawning horror. The mark she had always considered uniquely hers, a private comfort, was a terrifying key to a life stolen, a past she never knew. A quiet gasp escaped her lips, the sound brittle and lost in the sudden, crushing weight of reality. The dam broke. A choked sob tore from Lena's throat, quickly escalating into raw, gut-wrenching grief. Her hands flew to her face, trying to staunch the torrent of tears, but they streamed relentlessly, carving hot paths down her cheeks. "Who am I?" she whispered, her voice fractured, barely audible. "My whole life, was it all a lie? Lena Petrova, she's gone. Who is Lily Jensen? I don't know her." The words were a heartbroken wail, a desperate cry for the self she had known, now violently ripped away. The room seemed to spin, the solid ground beneath her feet dissolving into an existential void. Anya Sharma, her face a mask of profound empathy, quietly pushed a glass of water across the table, a small, steady anchor in the storm of Lena's unraveling. Thorne watched, his own eyes glistening, the silent witness to a pain he had unwittingly unleashed, a pain born of 40 years of unspoken sorrow. Lena's shoulders shook with the force of her despair, mourning a life that was and a life that might have been. Thorne let the silence settle, allowing Lena's raw grief to ebb before he spoke again. When he did, his voice was imbued with a deep, paternal compassion. "Lena, you are not alone in this. We understand the enormity of what you're facing." He leaned forward, his hands resting on the table, a gesture of unwavering support. "We have resources. Therapy, support groups for adoptees who've discovered their origins, legal assistance to navigate your new reality." He continued, his voice gentle but firm. "Your biological parents are no longer with us, but there may be other relatives. We can help you piece together Lily Jensen's history, to understand where you came from, who your family was." He met her tear-streaked gaze. "This isn't just pain, Lena. This is a chance for healing, for understanding. A chance to reclaim a part of yourself that was lost, but never truly forgotten. He extended his hand, not for a handshake, but as an open invitation, a tangible offer of a path forward. Lena, still fragile, looked at his hand, then at Anya, a flicker of hesitant acceptance in her eyes. Lena returned to her small apartment, the familiar space now feeling alien, imbued with the ghost of a life that wasn't hers. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the worn pattern on her sofa, everything seemed to mock the seismic shift within her. She moved through the rooms like a stranger, her body heavy with the weight of her new, impossible truth. Standing before her bathroom mirror, she looked at her reflection, then slowly, deliberately, lifted her left wrist. The starburst tattoo, once a spontaneous mark of self-expression, now pulsed with a different energy, a beacon to a lost past and a future she couldn't yet comprehend. She traced its faded lines, then the tiny scar beside it. Fragmented dreams, half-formed sensations from childhood. A swing set, the scent of fresh-cut wood, a lullaby she couldn't quite remember, began to surface, swirling in her mind, now making a terrifying, beautiful sense. The quiet of her apartment amplified the truth, turning her internal thoughts into echoing shouts. Lena Petrova was gone. Lily Jensen was here. And the star on her wrist was the undeniable proof. Lena sat in Chief Thorne's office, a week after the earth-shattering revelation. The bare room, once a place of sterile interrogation, now felt like a sanctuary, bathed in the gentle glow of a desk lamp. She was still fragile, the echoes of Lily Jensen reverberating in her mind, but a seed of curiosity had taken root. I want to know more, she said, her voice a hesitant whisper, yet firm with a nascent resolve. About Lily. About them. Thorne, his gaze warm and steady, nodded. He slid a folder across the desk, filled with old, sepia-toned photographs. "These are your parents, Lily's parents," he said, his voice soft. He introduced her to a kind-faced genealogist waiting in the hallway, a woman who specialized in helping adoptees, and mentioned a support group where others navigated similar journeys. He then picked up a faded photo of a young woman with kind eyes and a man with a carpenter's strong hands. "Your father, he used to carve little wooden stars for you," Thorne recounted, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "He said your birthmark was your guiding star." Lena's fingers brushed the image, a fragile hope blossoming in her heart, cautious, but undeniable. The aroma of roasted coffee filled the quiet cafe, a comforting contrast to the storm raging within Lena. Across the small round table sat Evelyn, a woman whose eyes held a familiar spark Lena couldn't quite place, a distant cousin of Lily's mother. Evelyn clutched a worn photo album, her hands trembling slightly. "Lily, she was a whirlwind?" Evelyn began, a nostalgic smile playing on her lips. "Always laughing, always chasing butterflies. Your father, he was so proud of her. He'd spend hours in his workshop, carving those little wooden stars, telling her they'd always guide her home." Evelyn flipped to a page with a blurry image of a little girl on a garden swing, a tiny star visible on her wrist. Lena's breath hitched. Evelyn's voice grew heavy, thick with the pain of a memory half a century old. "Your mother." She never stopped looking. "Not really. Her heart broke the day you vanished. She carried that grief until her last breath." Lena listened, tears silently tracing paths down her cheeks. But they were not just tears of sorrow. As Evelyn recounted a particular gesture, a way Lily would tilt her head, Lena found herself mirroring it. A shared laugh, a shared sorrow. It was like looking into a mirror, seeing not just a reflection but an echo of a family she had never known. The ache of what was lost was profound, but so too was the sudden, undeniable sense of belonging. Thorne drove Lena to a quiet, tree-lined street, pulling up outside an unassuming house with an overgrown front yard. "This was it," he said, his voice hushed. "Lily Jensen's home." Lena stepped out, the air feeling thick with unspoken history. She walked slowly, hesitantly, along the perimeter of the property, her eyes scanning the familiar lines of the porch, the ancient oak in the backyard. An inexplicable pull drew her towards a rusted swing set, half hidden by weeds. A faint impression, a sensation of childish joy, flitted through her mind. Was it a memory, or a whisper from the past? She reached out, her fingers tracing the rough bark of the old oak, a tree that must have watched her as a child. A profound, almost surreal connection settled over her. This wasn't just a house, it was a ghost of a home, a tangible link to the little girl she had been. She knelt, her hand pressing into the cool soil, feeling the earth that had once cradled Lily. The poignant sadness of a stolen childhood washed over her, yet beneath it, a powerful sense of homecoming, of finally touching the ground where her story began. Thorne stood silently, a respectful distance away, watching her, a quiet witness to a reunion 40 years in the making. The police station's press conference room buzzed with anticipation. Microphones bristled like metallic flora, and camera flashes punctuated the dim light. Chief Elias Thorne stood at the podium, Detective Sharma, a quiet, resolute presence at his side. He wore his uniform, impeccably pressed, his face solemn but radiating a quiet triumph. 40 years ago, Thorne's voice resonated, calm and authoritative. A child named Lily Jensen vanished from this city. Today, I stand before you to announce that the Lily Jensen case is officially closed. A ripple went through the room. He outlined the DNA evidence, the meticulous work of his team, carefully omitting the unofficial nature of his initial probe, attributing the breakthrough to new investigative techniques and persistent dedication. Frank Miller, the city official who had once dismissed Thorne's quest, hovered awkwardly in the background, his discomfort palpable. Yet Thorne's unwavering conviction left no room for dissent. Lily Jensen, now known as Lena Petrova, is alive and well, Thorne concluded, his voice swelling with emotion. She has been found. She has come home. The room erupted in a flurry of questions, but in Thorne's eyes, there was only the profound weight of a wrong finally righted. After the press conference, the quiet of Thorne's office felt like a deep exhale. The last reporter had left, their questions still echoing in the air. Thorne turned to Anya, his expression softened, a deep gratitude etched into his weary features. "Anya," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "thank you for trusting me, for believing in a ghost." He paused, then, with a deep breath, continued. "You know, the truth is, I never let go of that case. Lily Jensen was my first beat. My first failure. I carried that guilt, that hollow ache, for 40 years. It wasn't just a hunch, Anya. It was a personal crusade." He confessed the full extent of his unofficial actions, the quiet desperation that had driven him. Anya listened, her gaze unwavering, a profound understanding dawning in her eyes. She didn't scold or question, she simply nodded. "Chief," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "you didn't just solve a cold case, you brought a child home. And you found your own peace. I respect you, not just as my chief, but as a man who understands that some truths are worth breaking a few rules for." Her warm smile was his absolution, solidifying a bond forged in the pursuit of a decades-old truth. In the hushed confines of a legal office, Lena sat before a notary, a pen poised in her hand. Chief Thorne sat beside her, a quiet anchor of support. The documents before her outlined the legal reclamation of her birth name. "I want to acknowledge Lily Jensen," Lena said, her voice clear and strong. "That's who I was. That's where I came from." She signed the form, a momentous act. Then she looked up, a determined light in her eyes. "But I also want to keep Lena Petrova, my adoptive parents. They gave me a home, a life. They loved me. I am both. A bridge between two lives." Thorne watched her, a profound sense of pride swelling in his chest. She was not merely a lost child found. She was a woman empowered, embracing the complex tapestry of her identity. In that moment, he felt a peace he hadn't known in decades, witnessing her strength and resilience. The name she chose was a testament to her journey, honoring every part of her extraordinary story. Months later, the town square hummed with the joyful cacophony of a community fair. Lena, now sporting a confident new haircut and a vibrant, star-themed scarf, moved through the crowd, a radiant smile on her face. Locals, who had followed her incredible story, greeted her warmly, offering hugs and words of welcome. "Lena, so good to see you," a baker called out, handing her a warm pastry. "You're an inspiration," a young woman added. Lena, once guarded and self-reliant, now met their kindness with genuine warmth, feeling a profound sense of belonging. She wasn't just Lena or Lily, she was a valued member of this community, embraced not for her dramatic past, but for her resilient spirit. Chief Thorne, now retired and wearing a casual tweed jacket, observed her from a distance, a cup of coffee in his hand. He watched her laugh, her starburst tattoo catching the afternoon light as she gestured. His heart swelled with immense satisfaction. He had brought her home, and in doing so had found his own. The grand hall, usually reserved for formal police galas, hummed with a different kind of energy tonight. It was Chief Elias Thorne's retirement party, a sea of polished uniforms and city official smiles. Speeches flowed, praising his long, decorated career, but an unspoken current ran through the room. Everyone knew this evening was truly about Lily Jensen, the child he brought home after 40 years. Lena, now comfortably navigating her new identity, stepped to the podium, her voice soft but clear. "Chief Thorne," she began, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "You weren't just a chief solving a cold case. You were the man who brought me home." Her words, simple and heartfelt, acknowledged his personal dedication, a debt no badge could repay. From across the room, even Frank Miller, the once skeptical city official, approached Thorne, offering a firm, sincere handshake, a rare acknowledgement of a triumph that transcended bureaucracy. Thorne, in his crisp uniform, felt a peace settle over him he hadn't known was possible. Months later, the air in the community art studio was bright and vibrant, alive with the scent of paint and the gentle murmur of creation. Lena Petrova, now embracing the fluidity of her identity, stood before a group of eager students, guiding their hands as they sketched. Starburst motifs, once a private, unconscious symbol, now blossomed across her canvases, a prominent feature of her blossoming work. "Finding my past," she explained, her voice confident and warm, "didn't just fill a void, it transformed my entire perspective. It's given me a new wellspring of inspiration, a deeper sense of who I am." She sometimes signed her work, Lena Lily, a quiet testament to the two lives she now harmoniously embodied. The faded starburst tattoo on her wrist, once a mystery, was now a visible emblem of her reclaimed legacy, a story etched in her very skin. In a quiet corner of a bustling coffee shop, Elias Thorne and Lena met regularly. The steam from their cups curled upwards, a gentle counterpoint to their easy conversation. Thorne, now in comfortable civilian clothes, listened intently as Lena shared new fragments of her biological family's history, stories unearthed by genealogists, whispers from distant relatives. He offered wisdom, perspective, and the quiet strength of a man who had faced his own ghosts. They often fell into comfortable silences, a profound bond forged not by blood, but by an extraordinary shared history and mutual respect. It was a new kind of family, unexpected and deeply cherished, proving that connection, when true, could transcend any label. The diner's television flickered with a news report, its volume low, but audible. The anchor spoke with a renewed urgency about missing persons cases. "The astonishing resolution of the Lily Jensen case," the reporter announced, "has sparked a nationwide movement." Footage showed families of other missing children, their faces etched with newfound, fragile hope. The story was framed as a testament to perseverance, a beacon for those who had lost all faith. It highlighted how the dedication of one man, Chief Elias Thorne, had ignited a wave of awareness, reminding everyone that no lost child was ever truly forgotten. The ripple effect was undeniable, turning a personal quest into a catalyst for societal change. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet, Lena and Elias stood together at a quiet overlook, watching the city lights begin to twinkle below. Lena touched the faded starburst tattoo on her wrist, a quiet, almost reverent gesture. "It truly was a star to guide me home," she murmured, her voice soft with reflection. "Even before I knew the story, it was always there, a part of me." Elias, his arm gently around her shoulder in a fatherly embrace, looked out at the sprawling city. The guilt that had shadowed him for decades had finally lifted, replaced by a profound sense of peace. He had brought Lily home, even if it took 40 years. Her laughter, her art, her very presence were his new constellation, a testament to enduring hope and a legacy reclaimed. From haunted chief to peaceful retiree, Elias Thorne finally finds rest, his soul healed by the truth he uncovered, a legacy of redemption. The soft glow of a reading lamp cast a warm circle around Elias Thorne. Settled deep into his favorite armchair, a book rested on his lap, a forgotten prop. A mug of steaming tea cooled beside him. His gaze drifted to a framed photograph on the mantel. Lena, radiant and smiling, a life reclaimed. A profound sense of peace, one he hadn't known for 40 years, settled in his chest. True justice, he realized, wasn't always about arrests and convictions. Sometimes it was about the quiet, unbreakable connections that brought lost souls home. It was about bringing Lily back. From lost child to celebrated artist, Lena's art now tells her powerful story, a testament to resilience, creativity, and the unwavering bonds of friendship. The gallery buzzed with quiet admiration, Lily Petrova Jensen at its heart. Her first exhibition, Constellations of Identity, glowed with vibrant canvases, each piece adorned with a starburst motif, a symbol now fully embraced. Anya Sharma stood proudly nearby, a supportive smile on her face. "You've truly found your voice, Lena," Anya murmured. Lena's eyes, bright with purpose, met hers. "My past, once a void, is now the richest part of my story," Lena replied, a confident warmth in her tone. "It's not just memory, it's purpose, it's my art." A silent promise, a wooden star, and a legacy reborn. Lena honors the past while embracing her future, guided by the unseen stars of love and memory. Sunlight dappled through ancient oaks onto a quiet park bench. Lena and Thorne sat side by side, a small, polished plaque beside them reading, "In memory of Lily Jensen and all forgotten stars." Lena gently placed a small, intricately carved wooden star on the bench, a silent tribute to the father she never knew. Her fingers brushed her tattooed wrist. "It was always there, wasn't it?" she mused softly. "A star to guide me home." Thorne nodded, a quiet affirmation. "You were never truly lost, Lily, just waiting to be found." A name. It's more than just a label. It's the echo of a history, the foundation of who we believe ourselves to be. For Lena, her name had been a quiet anchor, a story she thought she knew. But a lost name, a forgotten identity, can haunt a life like an unseen shadow, waiting for a single faded clue to bring it into the light. It took the serendipity of a star-shaped tattoo and the unwavering commitment of a chief haunted by a 40-year-old regret to unravel a truth that reshaped everything. Chief Elias Thorne carried the burden of an unsolved case for decades, a weight that pressed down on his soul, threatening to define his entire career by failure. But his journey reminds us that true redemption isn't found in erasing the past, but in confronting it with courage and compassion. It's in the relentless pursuit of justice, not for accolades, but for the profound peace that comes from bringing a lost soul home. His was a personal quest, yet it spoke to a universal human desire for resolution, for the chance to finally mend a broken piece of history. And what of Lena? Her story is a testament to the astonishing resilience of the human spirit. To discover that your entire life, your very identity, was built on a foundation of unknowing is a shock beyond measure. Yet, Lena didn't crumble. She chose to embrace both Lena and Lily, weaving them into a rich tapestry of self. Her capacity to adapt, to find belonging, and to transform her past into a source of strength and creativity is an inspiration, proving that even when life steals your story, you have the power to write a magnificent new chapter. In the end, this story of Elias and Lena, of a faded star and a lost child, reminds us that family, love, and destiny are unbreakable threads that connect us across generations. Sometimes they are hidden, sometimes stretched thin by time and circumstance, but they are never truly severed. Lena's starburst tattoo, once a private comfort, became the guiding light that led her home. If this powerful tale of loss, hope, and reunion touched your heart, please let us know in the comments below. What would you have done in Chief Thorne's position? Don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who appreciates a story about the enduring power of connection. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will move you, inspire you, and remind you of the extraordinary stories hidden within ordinary lives.